This is Tim KA2A.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here tonight at the Hampden County Radio Association meeting. I have a slideshow to show you. This is not my slideshow. This was made by John Micklor, K3NXU. He's one of the authorities on DMR. This is a little dated. There may be some information in there that is not correct. I'll see if it is, and I'll try to correct it. As I go down through each slide, if anybody has any questions at the end, I'll be glad to answer them. Also, on the round table on the back, I put two piles of papers. One is a list of the New England Digital Emergency Communications Network repeaters, which are located in Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and also the talk group list, which we'll explain what talk groups are later. So I apologize if I don't have enough copies. My printer went kablooey, so I think I have about 20 copies. So if you're interested, please take one on the way out. Okay, so we'll start. Okay, the DMR difference. We're going to talk about what the history is, the quality difference, spectrum efficiency, what the local and worldwide networks are, repeaters and versus hotspots, code plug basics, and DMR today. Some of these slides, if they're not pertinent, I'm going to skip over them. I don't want to take a lot of time on each slide. DMR was developed in Europe by the ETSI, that's the European Telecommunications Standards Institute, and it was adopted as a commercial standard over 20 years ago. Initially, it was made for commercial business equipment. It was supposed to be the only source of DMR handhelds and mobiles. And DMR stands for Digital Mobile Radio. Quality and durability is unsurpassed. It came at a high price way back then. Now, in 2016, several vendors entered the ham radio market. These radios are a little more affordable and vary in quality and features, designed to be more ham friendly. I did bring two handhelds with a couple of hotspots, and Mark has his hotspot here too. So feel free to get through this and we'll look at some of the equipment as well. Okay, analog signal will lose quality and readability as the signal strength decreases. A digitally processed signal will remain clear. Now you can see on this chart, you'll see as the loss gets greater, the analog signal has a looped off. It doesn't completely break off. And you'll see as the digital signal goes, all of a sudden there's a sharp drop off. But this blue area is the difference in audio quality and coverage on a digital signal versus a regular analog signal. Spectrum efficiency. Now you'll see the bandwidth of an analog signal is normally 25 kilohertz. The DMR, which is TDMA, which stands for Time Division Multiple Access, the bandwidth is only 12.5 kilohertz. So what that tells me is that you can put two 12.5 kilohertz channels in a 25 kilohertz wide channel. It occupies half of the spectrum required, has the ability to transmit two separate conversations at one time. This is digitally splitting a transmitted signal into 30 millisecond slices known as time slots. So you'll see you have time slot 1, 30 milliseconds, slot 2. Then we go back to slot 1, slot 2, and then this is just a repetitive thing. In the digital world, this is called sample rate. Okay. And it says in TDMA, it is time division multiple A. Repeater interleaves incoming signals based on the time slot requested. On the left, you'll see one handheld on time slot 1, one on time slot 2. And then on the right side of the screen, you see another handheld, and they're both, one's on time slot 1, one on time slot 2. So a digital repeater can handle two time slots at one time, which means you can have two simultaneous conversations on a digital repeater. And Think of the repeater like a duplex house where separate families reside in one structure. The left side of the house, time slot 1. Right side of the house, time slot 2. Those divisions are referred to time slots. And then each house has its own set of rooms, it's referred to as talk groups. So in other words, the left side of the house has X amount of rooms, which would be considered talk groups. The right side and the other time slot has talk groups also. So if I want to talk to somebody in one specific room, I have to know the repeater information, the time slot also, and what the talk group would be. And also, repeaters have what they call color codes. In the analog world, we deal with digital coded squelch and CTCSS. In this digital world of DMR, we deal with color code. So it's frequency, color code, time slot, and talk group. Those are the things that we worry about when we want to get into a DMR repeater. 1,500 talk groups right now? Forget that. Exceeded that. Talk groups are roughly in about the 3,000 range right now, and they're growing. These are basic, some of the talk groups you have, local repeater network. There are statewide talk groups, regional talk groups, county-specific talk groups, worldwide talk groups, and specialty talk groups. The HCRA has a specialty talk group. They have a DMR talk group. Although it does not reside on any repeater, they have one. And it is available through the Brandmeister network, which we'll explain later. Special groups, they show you public safety, outdoor adventure, JODA, ecom, and handycams. All right, not all repeaters carry all talk groups. Depending on their network situation, the repeater owner assigns the talk group and the time slot structure most beneficial for your area. This is to permit the most activity with the least amount of interference. This is a standard. The repeater owner and also the repeaters have to interconnect to each other through the internet, and that's called through a C bridge. So the repeater owner and the C bridge manager or owner in concert work with what talk groups get distributed to the repeater. All right, full-time versus part-time. A full-time talk group is always available for monitoring. They usually will assign, if they assign a full-time talk group, they'll assign it on usually time slot 2, but that can change. So what that does is that means that that time slot on that repeater is dedicated only for that talk group, no other talk groups. That is a full-time operation. It's 24/7. You turn your radio on, that repeater will broadcast that out 24/7. A push-to-talk group is different. That's one that requires activation. It will only stay open for a predefined amount of time, usually about 10 minutes. And what happens is, if somebody keys up and announces their call sign on that talk group, on that time slot, on that repeater, that will stay active for 10 minutes. After 10 minutes of inactivity, then it will drop. That's how they get to share talk groups in repeaters. It's a shared resource. That way, you could have 10 to 20 talk groups available on a repeater, but only one can be used at a time in each time slot. So 2 conversations at one time on one repeater. Here's an example of them. It says local 2 is talk group 2. You'll see time slot 2, that's full time. Local 9, and that's talk group 9, time slot 2, and so on and so forth. Tiny dot indicates a full-time group. I don't know if you can see it, but PA State, Maryland State, Northeast Regional, in time slot 1 would be a full-time group. The 31421 PA TAC, that would be a push-to-talk. Mid-Atlantic would be push-to-talk, and Nationwide would be push-to-talk. Same thing, time slot 2, they assigned 2 actual talk groups full-time, and then the other ones are part-time talk groups, or push-to-talk, I should say. Push-to-talk, and the other groups that are full-time are called static talk groups also. So you have static is full-time, a dynamic talk group is a push-to-talk group. All right, just a picture of what a repeater is. That's a Motorola repeater on top. The network server is referred to as a C-bridge. So these would be C-bridge repeaters. And the C-bridge is the infrastructure that ties all the repeaters in, and they eventually get to a master server. In the United States here in the Brandmeister network, if it's a Brandmeister repeater, there are 4 master servers in the United States. So eventually, they're going to end up at the master server. And then the master server will also distribute it back out through the C-bridge. Think of it like a spider's web, where all different repeaters are tied in, and they're tied into a C-bridge, and then the C-bridge goes out to the master server. Okay, complexity of network, you can see here. Internet is fast, but it's not instant. I was talking to Bob about this before. This is called network latency. Your audio is processed through your handheld, forwarded to the repeater, and then the C-bridge server to the worldwide servers, where it's distributed. So this is where you get the latency issue. Process is then reversed coming back to you when you're the receiving station. So you can have a delay as much as 2 seconds, and it sometimes could be even more. That's why it's advisable to pause for 2 or 3 seconds before making a return transmission. Because of that latency issue, it's always good when you talk, you end your conversation, the other person doesn't pick up with the QSO for another 2 or 3 seconds. That allows for the latency for the network to catch up with itself. It also allows time for another station to break in if they have to break in. Yes?
Speaking of latency, this question is actually from a couple slides back.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. If you have 2 talk groups, 2 full-time talk groups on 1 time slot, how does that?
I know they say that in the slide. It usually is not a practice that's done. No, it's not usually not a practice that's done. Yeah. Because if you had 2 full-times on the same time slot, and you have people competing to try and use the 2 different talk groups, then that gets confusing. You also have network collision in the packets that are sent. So even though it says it's a possibility, the standard usually is a 1-time slot for a full-time talk. They won't stick a whole bunch of talk groups on it. Although it is possible, but it can be confusing. Okay. All right, push to talk. Because the number of talk groups that are assigned, it's very possible somebody might be using another talk group than the one you're listening to. If this occurs, your signal can interfere with them. This is avoided by the way DMR handles the PTT function. With the analog pressing PTT, your transmitter's all ready to go. You constantly transmit, no matter what. Not on DMR. When you're pressed, signal sent to the repeater, it checks to see if the time slot's available, and then it sends a data stream back to your radio, giving you the all clear, sometimes generating a beep tone. Most of the guys here who have DMR radios, I know, when you hit that PTT and you hear that means you're not connected. Otherwise, you're sending out your information to the repeater, and the repeater or the if you're doing it through a hotspot, if the talk group is active, you're just going to get that boot as long as your radio is programmed correctly. Yes.
So are the repeaters still duplex? Like there's an uplink and a downlink frequency that is separate?
Yes, there is. Right. You will have an input frequency to the repeater and a repeater output frequency. Yes, same thing. Correct. On the hotspots here, a little bit different. We'll get into them later, but they operate on simplex. You can operate one simplex frequency to it, and it will transmit back to you on the same simplex frequency. Or actually, you could even change it in the software, but it's usually one frequency and same frequency back. Okay, now here's the 2 main networks. You have the DMARC network, and you have the Brandmeister network. DMARC is more prevalent here in the United States. However, we do have Brandmeister repeaters here in the United States, and they're popping up more and more. Brandmeister repeaters are more versatile because a Brandmeister repeater can handle any talk group available in the Brandmeister network on any time slot. Although it's not recommended to go outside of the repeater owner's plan, like a band plan like we have in amateur radio. You have a talk group plan that's usually set up by the repeater owners. So that is what makes it a little bit more confusing. You can't just get on a repeater and start transmitting. You have to do a little research to see what talk groups are available on that repeater and on what time slots as well. Brandmeister was developed in Europe. The roots are totally different, like two pine trees side by side, and it's absolutely true. They have different servers. It's two different networks. However, there are talk groups, and the majority of them do cross over between each, but there are some talk groups that do not work. Brandmeister versus DMARC, Worldwide English, and North America are three of them, along with the parent channel. They do not cross over, and a lot of other ones don't either. Okay, network activity. Here's what I was just talking about as far as crossovers are concerned. You'll see the DMARC network, TAC 310, 311, and 312 both cross over to Brandmeister. 313 to 319 are available in DMARC, but they don't cross over to the Brandmeister. They have the X there. That's incorrect. They all cross over now. All of the TAC groups cross over. State groups do. Regional groups, probably not. And the nationwide talk group do. So there is some existence of talk groups that work in both networks, and there are some that don't. You can see, well, they say the 10 TAC channels there, but all the TAC channels are common to both of them right now. Okay, two main pieces of equipment to be used in the DMARC network. A repeater. We all know about repeaters, high elevation, wide area coverage. Repeater is then linked with an internet connection to allow to access the DMARC network. So the internet connection goes through a C bridge and eventually ends up at the master server. The other is a hotspot. They're developed for short-range access to the network where there is no repeater available. It's not a repeater, it's a low-power device that receives the digital signal, passes it to the DMR network via the internet. And right now, my two and Mark's are set up, they're connected to our cell phones. So our cell phone is giving us the internet connection to get back to the Brandmeister server. And they're actually, two of those are wireless, the other one is a hardwired connector. Okay, talk group activity levels. That is a mood issue. Some talk groups can be more active than others. Others aren't quite active. That you will find out when you start using DMR. 3-second pause allow network latency. We talked about that. A second pause after the PPT, right? Because once you key your radio up, your radio has to send all of that packet information to the repeater, and then that has to end up at the server, and it has to come back to you also. So it's not like you just key up and it doesn't work that way. You key up, just wait a brief second, and then you can pass your traffic through. Time slot in use, you'll either get a busy tone on your radio or the LED light will indicate it. If your radio is programmed correctly, if you go to transmit and that repeater or that time slot is active, you'll get a move back, or it will not let you transmit. Some people don't program it correctly and they do talk right over it. That causes packet collision in the network and nobody gets anywhere. All right, it's no calling CQ. This is not HF. You just simply announce your call sign with the talk group and say that you're listening. I would announce on Nationwide. I would say this is KA2A listening on Nationwide. Boom, that's it. Somebody will come back to you. You carry on your QSO, just like normal 2-meter or 440 repeater. Let's see. If you're on a nationwide or worldwide talk group, you might want to move to a TAC channel. TAC channels are meant for rag channel. You want to carry on a long-winded conversation with somebody to move off to a TAC channel. That'll free up the other talk groups that carry more traffic. This is a picture of what they call, well, this is called the net controller, the Netwatch. If you look at a particular C bridge, and I can't really see which C bridge this is. Oh, it's the K4 USB C bridge. So every time that you transmit, your information is sent over the network, and you can see on the first line that we have 311, 3735 is the period alias, and you'll see the call sign next to it, K4IOB, gives a location. It also shows what C bridge they connect through. So there's no escaping DMR. You know, your chunking and all that stuff. Everybody knows who you are, especially the C bridge owners. All right, now a code plug. A code plug is nothing more than a data file that's loaded to your radio that gives it all the operating parameters. It's the heart of the radio. It makes everything work. So when you hear somebody say code plug, that's what that is. Code plug CPS is code plug software. That's the software that's needed to program your radio. Domain parts, contact list, channel information zones, and talk groups are very important also. Okay, before you start your trip, you need to know where you want to go. You need to know the talk group name, talk group number, the call type. Call type will always be group call. There's also private call. Private call would be radio to radio, and nobody else hears you. It's a private conversation. Private calls are discouraged on repeaters. You could probably do private calls through the Brandmeister network, hotspot to hotspot, but that is very seldomly done also. This is a picture of what the contact list looks like. This appears to be, I believe this would be a Titera. It looks like that. And you get the contact name, they're all group calls. This call ID, this is the talk group number. So the Mid-Atlantic talk group is 3173, excuse me. Northeast would be 3172. And that's what that is. That's the contact list. I believe that's for a Titera.
A quick question, Tim.
Yes, sir.
What's the call receive tone?
In most radios, you can set up a specialized zone, or let's just say a specialized tone for a talk group that transmits. So in other words, if you wanted to hear worldwide and have it generate a tone to your radio that you knew that worldwide was transmitting.
Okay.
It's like a special ringtone would be on a cell phone.
Yeah.
Okay, separate channel needs to be created for every talk group desired. That's true. Not all repeaters carry every talk group. We talked about that. Over 1,200 possibilities. That number has grown quite a bit too. And that's at the discretion of the repeater owner. This is a good idea. Start your initial channel list with only 5 to 10 channels so that you get comfortable with it. And I hear Mark laughing because he's got 1,400 and some odd channels in his radio now. Yeah, it's much easier to correct 5 than 150 channels. Okay, this is actually what a channel looks like in the software, in the CPS, and this also looks like Titera as well. You'll see that the channel mode is always digital. The bandwidth, of course, we know is 12.5. Scan list can be set up. The receive frequency and transmit frequency, usually set it at medium is good. A 3-minute timeout is usually good for a repeater. You'll see that you have to label the channel name of what it is. Here's your receive frequency, your transmit frequency, and this is the biggest no-no I ever saw. Admit criteria always should never be set at always. It should be set at color code or channel free. This technically should be set at color code, and this in-call criteria should be set at follow admit criteria. That prevents, remember when I was talking about before, two people talking at once, keying up,
Yeah.
and the packets colliding and everything? When you have your radio set to the color code or channel free, you won't interfere with somebody else. If somebody else is on and talking, you're going to get the rejection tone on your radio. Contact name, that is your talk group. Group list, we won't really get into group lists, but color code, which we talked about, and repeater slot. So these are the big ones. Receive, transmit, color code, and time slot, and contact. Okay, and the zone is where you group all your channels together by category. For instance, if you want channels of a particular repeater in one group, you would assign them to one zone. So basically, the way I build my code plugs is I build a code plug, one zone for each repeater, and then I will populate that zone with the talk groups that are available on that repeater. That's usually the way that I do it. Again, this is the criteria. You'll see the zone was named, shrews, and the available channel list is over on the left. That would be all of the master channel list, all the channels that you program into your radio, and they can be brought over as a channel member. Now, all radios vary. Some radios only allow 16 channels in the zone. Some allow up to 100 channels in the zone. So the radios, there is no set standard. It depends on the radio that you actually have. Some radios only take 1,000 channels, some take 4,000 channels. And talk groups, some will only take 250 talk groups, where others will take 1,000. So it is different. Once you set the channels up, you might consider scan lists. Scan lists really a mood issue. If you want to set it up, it's not a necessity. And then you can just make the scan list the same as you would. Okay, never forget this is a hobby. This is a hobby, that's true. Okay, that is the end of the slideshow. Does anybody have any questions? And I'm sorry about my presentation pointer just died on me. Otherwise, it would have made it easier. Yes?
So, is there a way to access the networks from like a PC if you have the hardware? Because it's all on the internet, right?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
No, you have to have you either have to have a radio. A radio has to be at the end of it, basically.
It's not like Echolink?
It's not like Echolink. No, it's not. It's not where you could just get up on the computer and make a connection. And when I was talking before about hose line, now Brandmeister has hose line, which allows you to listen in on talk groups. The hose line has not been working correctly lately either. It's been down, it's up, it's down, and up. So that's an unreliable source. But that would be the only way that you could monitor a DMR conversation without having the radio, would be going through the Brandmeister hose line. Yes, sir.
You mentioned the repeaters are connected to the internet. Is that through a local ISP, or is that in each case, or is
it goes through, they're connected via a C bridge. Now, a C bridge will eventually end up at the master server, whether it be the DMARC master server or the Brandmeister master server. They will end up there. There are multiple repeaters tied into C bridges. So we have one C bridge connection that goes out to eventually ends at a master server. But on that C bridge, you can have 15, 20, 30 repeaters. It depends on what C bridge is available in the area, and if the repeater runner wants to tie into that C bridge.
Well, the reason I asked the question was because, while in our general area here, of course, we have plenty of access to the internet, but if you get into the more rural areas, that starts to become problematic even today.
Right.
And that would seem to me limit a little bit the usage of.
You're absolutely correct, and that is one of the reasons why you won't find DMR repeaters out in rural areas. Yes, sir.
I just want to add that you can talk from radio to radio on DMR. You don't need to use a repeater. So, Paul, you can just.
Yes, you can.
And there can be also a localized repeater just for DMR.
In private
have to be on
call.
the network.
All right.
Right, and that's true. He's right. You can have a standalone repeater. It does not have to be tied into the network. But then, of course, you're restricted to just what area that repeater covers.
Similar to conventional repeater.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. And yes, you can talk radio to radio. It's DMR ID to DMR ID on private call, on a private connection, not a group call.
So will the private call clash with the FCC in terms of the communication have to be transparent?
No. First of all, you have to, DMR is the same as operating in analog. You have to announce your call sign at the beginning of the conversation, every 10 minutes, and then at the end of your conversation. It doesn't change at all. Even though you're sending information when you're keying up on your radio, sending digital information, you're still required by FCC rules to follow the same as you would on an analog repeater.
Carol, I think what you were saying was something I was thinking too. It's digitally encoded, right?
Obscured.
Obscured, but it's not. It's not encrypted. I guess it's encoded, right? So
Right. It's not encrypted. Correct. If you're thinking about that, yeah, no, it's not an encrypted transmission. It doesn't fall in that category. No.
It's like P8, but different.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's right. Exactly. Yes.
Equipment. There are half a truckload of Chinese HTs. From what I've been able to read, they don't all play well in the sandbox with each other.
Well,
But they that's still a lack of a full standard for a lot of the stuff. How about more of a mobile? Is there much, in mobile? I haven't seen too much other than the HTs.
no, there are mobile radios available also.
Yeah.
And manufacturers are coming out more and more with different mobiles. When you say they don't play in the same box together, I don't quite
From what I've been
understand.
reading, like a lot of different brands or models of the Chinese ones, when you're doing DMR simplex, radio to radio,
Mhm.
one will hear the other and not be able to be heard by that one. And I don't know whether that's a software code
I've
plug-in or-
never heard of that before because the radios are made to DMR standard, and as long as you have all the parameters set in radio A and radio B, they should in theory be able to talk to each other.
Well, there was one issue. Baofeng released their first DMR radio that was a tier 1.
Tier 1, right? That was a tier 1. It was not a tier 2 compliant. DMR is tier 2 compliant. It's not tier 1. You're right. And
That was a big to do about.
And what happened was when Baofeng put that radio out, which was a tier 1 radio, when you transmitted on a repeater, you were transmitting on both time slots. So that was what the big issue was. That was tier 1. Tier 1 DMR was meant to go radio to radio, not operate through a repeater system. But definitely not the DMR repeater. Yes.
Tim, could you show and explain what's involved with getting a hotspot running in your house and then do a demo of DMR?
Yeah, I would like very much to. I also brought a couple of handhelds around, and that conversation that you hear right now, that's on DMR Worldwide. That's on the Brandmeister network. That conversation is working through that particular hotspot right now.
Jim, I think going back to what he was talking about, the differences in radio, we're talking about the AC uses their standard.
Oh, you're talking, well, that's not DMR.
That's Fusion.
Well, DMS.
No, that's apples and oranges. You have Fusion,
Yeah,
you have D-Star,
D-Star.
you have P25, you have NXDN. Those are all digital modes, but we're just dealing with DMR. See, what happened was when ICOM built their D-Star and Yaesu built their Fusion, they built those networks because they wanted to sell their radios. They made their standard only available for their radio manufacturing. DMR is an open standard. Any radio manufacturer can build a DMR radio. And now more of them are starting, you're starting to see more and more companies build them. But I don't think you'll ever see ICOM build a DMR radio. I don't think you'll see Yaesu build a DMR radio. Because they want to stay specific to their networks. Okay, it's not very difficult to get a hotspot. This particular hotspot, this is a jumbo spot. These are Chinese boards inside here. This is a Pi 0W board with an MMDVM hat on it. And MMDVM stands for Multi-Mode Digital Voice Modem. So this little box here can handle all of those modes that we just talked about. It can do D-Star, it can do P25, it can do NXDN, it can do Fusion, and it can do DMR. It can do it all. And that's set in the software as to what modes you want to use. There's a specific software called Pi-Star, and that's what these operate on. All of these hotspots operate off Pi-Star. The only thing is that this other hotspot that I have in here does not operate off Pi-Star. This is the granddaddy of them all. This is called the Shark RF Open Spot. This was one of the first ones that was ever made. And I'll tell you, it was one of the best ones that was ever made, too. They don't make this anymore. They came out with an Open Spot 2 version, which does not have half the functionality as this as far as distance is concerned. They took the external antenna, they built it into the radio. They took the LEDs off. They put one big flashing LED in the top of the case. So they limited the range on it. They had a great product, and they botched it. They botched it. That was the granddaddy of all, that particular one. These are fairly reasonable. That particular one that I just showed you, brand new, was about $250. This one in my hands is $125, so half the price of what they are. And these, of course, are Chinese electronic boards that are put together. They're not really tight. I have to say that when you go into the software, when you get your hotspot, they give you what the offset frequencies are for transmit and receive, and you'll have to put them in, or they're already in when the person builds it. But it's still a neat little thing. You can see it's got a little OLED screen on it. Gives you the information right now. I can see with glasses. I can see that is, it looks like 2E1 DNH. His name is John, and he's on talk group 91, time slot 2, which all of these operate on time slot 2, but it's a neat little thing. I even have my call sign imprinted in it. A friend of mine built that for me. He has a 3D printer. Radio equipment. Here, I'll take this, pass it around, just pass it on down the board. That particular one is Connect Systems CS580. That is a cheap radio. It's an entry-level radio. That's a $100 radio. That's one of the 1,000-channel radios. This one here is a little bit different. This is an Anytone. This is Anytone 878. This is a 4,000-channel radio, and up to 160,000 contacts. I forget how many zones, but up to 100 channels in the zone. This has roaming capability in it, has APRS, and it also has GPS in it as well. So this is the hottest radio that's on the market right now.
What does that radio cost?
That one is, I believe they sell that, and that's price point fixed at $219.
It's only $100 more.
They're coming out with a Bluetooth version of that radio, which is going to be, I believe, $30 more, somewhere around there.
Will these also do analog?
They are analog too, yes. They're analog and digital. So the one radio, the first one that I passed over there, the 580, that is a single band. That is only UHF. That one there, the Anytone, is VHF and UHF. Yes, sir.
You said you're running that hotspot to the internet through your phone.
Correct.
What types of data does it, data throughput does it?
Surprisingly enough, it's not bad. It does not really chew up on your data. It's fairly reasonable. If you have a data plan on your phone that's a 2 gig or 4 gig plan, you hardly see a dent in it at all.
Okay.
You want to pass your radio around, Mark, too? Did you see Mark's radio?
That's TYT.
That's a TYT. That's an MDUV 390. That radio has GPS in it also, and that is dual band as well. Yes, Larry.
Can the
GPS waterproof.
Can the hotspot be programmed to do more than one wireless at a time? Like, can you program for your home wireless and for your cell phone? Or does it have to be a
Yes, no. Some of them can. This particular jumbo spot, using PyStar software, I can name a series of wireless networks. I have to put the SSID in and the password. Now, what happens is in a PyStar, it starts with network 0, then 1, 2, 3, 4. What it'll do is if it sees network 0, it will connect to network 0. If network 0 is unavailable, it goes and keeps searching. So this way, this one is set up on my home network and also my cell phone.
Okay.
So when my cell phone is unavailable, it'll connect to the home network and vice versa.
Also, price point on that radio is $135.
Hotspot. How far away from your radio can you go with the hotspot?
That's a good question. Some people, as you can see, you only have a small antenna on it. Your distance is limited. I would say if you got away from there, maybe a block or two, you'd be lucky. 2 blocks would probably be the most. Don't forget, this is very low power. We're talking 20 milliwatts. That's all that it's putting out. So it's not, it's not an excessive power output. But some people have adapted them and put different antennas on them. They've taken this antenna off. They hook it to an external antenna on their car. They leave it in their car. And they walk for blocks and blocks. In fact, Ted can tell you. Ted, how you do when you have yours hooked up to your antenna?
About 3 miles.
3 miles.
Like you, I built a device.
I see.
It has the spot, the battery, and a jetpack in it, a cellular jetpack. And then I put a SO239 on it to be able to hook an external antenna up, and then there's a little rubber ducky antenna in the box to carry. About 3 miles.
3 miles, that's unheard of. I have never heard of that before. Never. You're lucky, Ted. You're a lucky guy.
We grounded antenna.
So basically, that's it. And the hotspots are your alternative when you don't have a repeater available. Now, I know up here in the Holyoke area, and you don't have anything for DMR. I think, Ted, you said Northfield, there are a couple.
Northampton.
Or Northampton?
Yeah.
But they're very limited in distance.
You can get about 10 feet from it.
10, maybe 15.
So
Dana has one in Connecticut, KU1 AEV in Summers, and from West Springfield area, I can get into it with an HT, no problem. Once you
Is
start going-
that a UHF machine?
It's a UHF machine,
Uh-huh.
and that's part of the PERA, or I forgot the name.
Oh, PVRA.
Yeah, they're part of it, and so, yeah, it's inverted, so I can hit it from Springfield, West Springfield, no problem, with an HT.
Now that's the repeater that Ted, you have that in your code plug
You can
too.
hear it here.
Right,
Can't hit it.
right, PVRA, yes. Yeah, I mean, this is a very good alternative when you can't access a local repeater. I can't either at my home QTH. It's very difficult. So I opted with this. Like I said, I went with the granddaddy of them all first. And then I had this, I just got this a couple of weeks ago or a month or so ago. I wanted to play with Pi-Star and get more familiar with Pi-Star. And this has a little more versatility to it than the other one does. But they all do the job. And all you need to do is have a battery source. This has built-in Wi-Fi. This particular unit does not have built-in Wi-Fi. That's why I have a travel router hooked up to it. So I substitute that.
Tim, what's generally the output power of these HTs that you've been testing around?
They vary. They can vary as little as a half a watt all the way up to 7 or 8 watts, depending on the model. I think the Anytone can, at highest, at turbo power, can output 7 watts.
And are they, the DMR radios only available in HTs?
Oh, no, there's mobile radios available too.
Okay.
Yeah, there are mobile radios. A lot of guys will buy mobile radios and they'll put them in their house. They use them as a base station, but just with a power supply to it, hooked to an external antenna.
Various analog in terms of the equipment that's available.
Yeah, I mean, and it's getting more and more. There's more and more equipment becoming available as time goes on. A lot of the Chinese are taking this and running with this technology. And I think you had a question. Yes, sir.
All of our radios scan analog and digital alternately. They do it at the same time.
When you say scan, what do you mean? Like in
If you
a?
want to scan a bunch of repeaters,
Yes, absolutely. You can build a zone and add analog channels and digital channels, and then build a scan list off of that and let it scan through that. Right. You're not restricted on these radios to make just a digital zone or an analog zone. You can put a mixed zone. You can make a zone that's pertinent to the area that you're located in too. So it's not you don't have to just stay with DMR or analog or whatever. You can mix and match as much as you want. Yes, sir.
Tim, if I know you help Bob and Ted a lot. If members of the club get involved or buy a radio and a hotspot and need help, can they reach out to you for help?
Absolutely. You have my contact information. Ted has my contact information. Bob does. Mark does. Yes.
Good, thank you.
The only thing is, I'm not going to get into building you a code plug. Code plugs. When I got my first Motorola radio, it took me 5 weeks to build the code plug, and I'm retired, so I could spend 8 hours a day, 9 hours a day. It took me that long to build the code plug. Now, like I said, you have to build a channel at a time, and you saw in the slideshow all the parameters that have to be filled in for a channel. It can be quite lengthy.
Is it specific to a radio, or can you share code plugs?
Code plug is specific to the model radio that you have. There is a software out there now called Contact Manager, and you can actually convert some of the code plugs from one radio to another radio type, which we did with Mark's radio. Mark took Ted, we have Ted's code plug for Mark's radio. He has a different model radio than Mark did, but we were able to convert it. And plus, he also got a code plug from somebody in Florida that he wanted to add that Florida information in. And I was able to import that information in through that software as well. So yes, you can, with the proper software, manipulate between radios code plugs. But only certain radios, and it's mostly all the Chinese radios. Motorola, forget it. That's another story. They're proprietary by themselves with their software and everything, But yeah, the Chinese radios, the Titeras, the Anytones, yeah, that stuff can be saved. It can be put between code plugs. I know it sounds confusing, and I would be confusing too if I first heard this. And it's a lot to take in at one time. But basically, all it is it's a digital radio. That's it.
Any other questions for Tim?
We were talking a little bit before about power levels and range, and you showed that graph at the beginning where basically with analog, when you're on the fringes, your signal quality degrades, whereas here it just kind of cuts off.
Right. Well, think of CW. CW travels a lot more distance than voice does, right? Same principle. You'll see in an analog, when an analog signal starts to degrade, it degrades at a slower slope. And digital is either there or it's not there. That's usually the way it works.
So is the range just in general for a given power level? Would you say it's greater?
Digital range, digital quality, and range is better than analog. Yes, sir.
Tim, as a little thanks, we have little thanks from the club for it. You wouldn't let us treat you last night, so.
Oh, thank you. But you shouldn't have done that, Larry.
Anyways, thank you very much.
It's been my pleasure to come here. Thank you.
I just want to catch that side real quick. ACRA does have a talk group on Brandmeister. It's 31255. So if anyone wants to if anyone's interested in DMR and you get on the Brandmeister network, program in talk group 31255. Say hello. Hopefully someone responds. But I set it up with Brandmeister a while back, and then they reorganized, and thankfully they let me keep the same number. So 3125 is usually for Massachusetts, so I made it 31255. So I'll try to make that available to the. It is available if you search for it, but we do have a talk group, so that way members can talk to each other through the DMR network.
Can you feed a little bit of information to Vanessa and she'll put it up on the website?
And I have a question for you. I have a question for you. How long did it take you to get that assignment from Brandmeister?
Instantly. Well, the thing is, you can use any talk group number you want, but the network administrator would eventually take it off. So what I did is I created it instantly, and then I emailed their, I forgot the person, there's a person that deals with their database, and they just replied back, okay, you're all set. So.
Now, did you see if that could be covered on any of the repeaters in the immediate area, if anybody wanted to put it on their repeater?
I didn't reach out to anyone, and as I said, Dana's the only one, and that's a club repeater for them. So.
Because, it might be worth reaching out to, if there are any local DMR repeaters, they might want to carry that talk group on their repeater.
I noticed that most of the repeaters around here are for MARP, MARs, DMR MAR, especially.
Yeah, but the one in Vernon, Ted found out, that's a Brandmeister repeater.
That is, that's Dana's machine, yeah.
But just a quick comment, Jeff, I've got it in here, I'm still waiting for somebody to call me, I haven't heard anything yet. I call every once in a while, I'll keep listening, I have the log for it.
There's actually two in Vernon, one on each network, but the Brandmeister one has the amplifier on it.
Okay.
How far north can you key into that phone?
You should get it around here. The Vernon one should come in around here. And then there's the standalone repeater in Granville, Mass. 442.750. And time slot 2 is programmed for local 9. You can't talk to the world, you can talk to each other. And now we work either in DMR or analog. Either one.
Okay, any last minute questions? Okay, great.